Hi, I'm Paul Camillos, and welcome to Shooting the Breeze. Join me and the STB crew for Series 8. Just hit that subscribe button, and if you enjoy the pod, share it and give it a like. While we're taking a short pod break, we've got some of our biggest 2025 podcast replays queued up for your Aussie summer enjoyment. For the full podcast, make sure to go back and listen to the episode, and you can subscribe to Shooting the Breeze wherever you get your podcasts. So, Celeste, it's kind of getting pretty crowded around that fourth spot on the ladder.
It is. It's getting pretty tight.
What do you think it's going to take to try and get a little bit of edge on the rest of the teams that are kind of crowded in there?
Yeah, I know we have Canberra right below us, so these next two games will be really helpful for us, especially getting the win against them. But I think just remaining to stay together. We've had a roller coaster of a season from injuries and, a couple other things. And so just trying to stay healthy and trying to do the best that we can. I think we just need to look for that little push at the end to at least help us get into playoffs, into finals. And then from there, it's going to take a whole nother energy, a whole nother power to do what we want to do.
And you've been to some of the top colleges in the NCAAW tournament in your career, including Texas with Cap starting center Charlie Collier. So we love a full circle moment. And also Duke. Did you play at Duke with Mila Soa?
Yes.
Yeah. So the girl Mila, and then finishing your career at Ohio State. So I imagine throughout your college career you would have been in similar situations as you are now with the Flames, but like you said, that tight spot for fourth. So what's something from your college career that you can draw upon to put into these next couple of games to help the Flames get the win?
Yeah, I think just a leadership standpoint of like the mindset that you have to come into games like this. A lot of it, you think is just physical, but most of it is mental. And to come into here and having that confidence that we can do it, I think is really important. So besides the physical aspect and trying to keep us together, I think something that's important is just the mentality that we have to be able to compete for 40 minutes and just to believe that we can do it.
Do you think that with all the unexpected changes that have happened to the roster, literally from before the season started, do you think it's helped the team to be able to adjust faster to changes, but also do you think it's helped build the team's resilience and dependence on each other?
Yeah, I think that, from the beginning, we had to have this sort of confidence in each other and just be able to rely on one another. I think something that Guy brought up since the beginning of the season is like doing things and making plays and knowing where your teammate is going to be. So we do certain things and make sure that we're in certain positions so that our teammate can make a blind hook pass to the corner, and just having that confidence and that trust in one another. I think that, it's definitely given us some sort of resilience piece. It's definitely been hard, but I think that we have to come together and work a little harder to build that last, 10 minutes of a game and be able to continue to compete throughout four quarters. Cause I think we've done it through a couple stretches, but we haven't shown that throughout a whole game. And I think that's important, but I think that it has helped us be able to lean on each other a little bit more and trying to find like versatility within all of us. I mean, a lot of us are playing out of position. And so it's just a learning experience for all of us, and being able to go through it with a teammate who is in the same position as you has been pretty cool. So we're just continuing to rely on each other and lean on one another through this.
I got to admit, it's been interesting watching the evolution of the way the Flames have played across this season, because at the beginning you could tell the fact that, like a couple of weeks before the season started, a couple of players just weren't going to be available. And then over time, things just kept adjusting, either with injury or with other things happening. As a player, how do you deal with that? Because it's almost like and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the Flames have been able to put a full team on the floor anywhere through this season.
I think just, as a basketball player, anything can happen at any given moment, and that injuries are pretty common, which sucks, especially in basketball and throughout basketball. And obviously things happen. So just being able to expect the unexpected sometimes is important as an athlete and as a basketball player. Throughout my career, I've have gone to a lot of different places and, have been that person that's been taken from a team and then put on another team. But, just being able to have that resilience and have that hunger and that fight, like we didn't expect things to look like this at this point in the season, especially with the way our team's looking and the injuries that have happened. But the injured players have done an amazing job of continuing to be by our side and continuing to push us and help us, which has been really helpful as well. Like I said before, like just being able to expect the unexpected. I mean, like things happen. We can't see the future. We don't know what's going to happen. And so just trying to be prepared as much as we can, and everybody taking another step, taking an extra step, putting in a little bit more has helped us throughout this season.
And we also spoke to Jade Melbourne recently in preparation for this live pod and showcase between UC Caps and the Flames. And she talked about how Coach Paul Goris had started to implement some things off court to help cultivate their team culture to transfer on court. Is your team at the Flames starting to kind of rally around each other off court as well to kind of help support each other into this stretch of the season?
Honestly, the crazy part about it has been that regardless of our wins and losses, I think the one thing that has remained consistent with us is that chemistry, especially off the court. I mean, throughout this whole season since I've got here, we spent a lot of time either going out to eat or going to the beach or just doing activities like that. I mean, we see each other basically every day. Most of us live in the same place. So we're definitely always bumping into each other, seeing each other at the supermarket, the stores and stuff like that. And so I don't think there's been a huge difference. I think that's one thing that actually has remained constant with us is that our ability to have that chemistry off the court and trump through the highs and lows together due to that chemistry that we have off the court.
One of the things I've noticed at home games is no matter how tough the game that you're shaping up for is, when you're warming up, you guys seem to be trying to keep it really loose and have a little bit of fun to get yourselves in the mood. How do you guys do that, particularly when, sometimes you're going up against that number one team or that number two team and still keep focus?
Yeah, obviously everyone has their own, way to prepare for the game. In some games we've had struggled a little bit in the beginning, and I don't know if it's whether due to that focus or that looseness, but we do have a young team as well. And so when you're younger, you tend to be uptight a lot, you tend to be nervous. Any move you make, you tend to just get a little scared, and by some of us being loose and making each other smile, just reminding each other that this is a game and obviously we want to win, but we also are here to have fun and enjoy our time together, because that's what makes playing basketball fun, the relationships you have, and obviously winning, but just being able to play freely. And I think that's where that looseness comes from, of making sure that we're locked in mentally with the game plan and everything we need to do, but we still can do our job with a smile on our face and putting a smile on our teammates' face as well.
I'm keen to know who in your squad at the moment is one of the best at putting smiles on the teammates' faces. Like, who's the one in the change room boosting the mood? Who's the one with the aux cord? There was a cool reel that was put on Instagram with Bonnie D's on the mic, and she's, queuing up Scissor at the start, which I thought was funny. Who in the team do you think is the one that is the biggest mood booster and the one to really boost the morale of the team before a game?
Yeah, I would say everybody finds their own ways. Probably one of the more outspoken ones would probably be between Bonnie and Yamaya. They're quiet, but at the same time, like if they're playing music, they'll get going, like they'll give us a little dance, like just things like that. It's pretty funny. She finds her way to make everybody laugh and smile. Kayla will also make us smile, but at the same time, we see the focus and then it, kind of spreads to all of us. I think everybody has their fair share of connecting with each other.
And the thing you mentioned, which I think sometimes people forget, it is a young team. And in fact, between the Caps and the Flames, it's two of the youngest teams overall going up against each other. You know, you think that from your perspective, being a younger team, it gives you an opportunity to try and experiment a little bit, because the expectation that comes over a long period of time playing a certain way isn't there, and that maybe that gives you a bit more freedom.
I would say a little bit. I think the only thing is, you know, I feel like even though we are young, I feel like we have this expectation that not so much that other people have put on us, that we've put on ourselves. And that's to go out there and to compete. And I think where the lack of experience comes in is like, you know, certain games when we're going through, you know, a certain play or something needs to happen, or we have to have that certain focus. I think that's where we see that lack of experience. But we still have this standard that we've put on ourselves, that we want to compete and we want to win. And so I don't think that we've so much paid attention to the outsideness. And yeah, we've even, you know, Guy has said it multiple times, you know, we are a young, inexperienced team, even though we do have Kayla and Michaela, but that's not an excuse. You know, that can't be an excuse of how we go out there and perform, because we all know how to play basketball. We were all put on this team for a reason. We were scouted here, we were recruited here. And so we come in with the standard of wanting to win. And, you know, previously, you know, the Flames have been pretty high on the ladder. And so Guy is trying his best to do what he can to bring us back up there. And he's constantly telling us and reminding us that that's where we need to be. And so that is the standard that we have around us. So being young, yeah, you feel like you could play a little freely and experiment a little bit. But at the same time, our goal is to try to get Sydney back to where it was and keep it high up on the ladder and make it into finals.
And I think it's largely to do with the relationship between the coaches and the athlete. And that is why I try to help coaches as well, because they have so much power in this dynamic. So we need to make sure, because they've got their own stuff going on. Like, they need to develop their own self-awareness. They need their own mindset tools, all of that type of stuff at the same time.
Okay. Brought up the whole concept of the coach and their reaction to being told, for example, this player can't trade today. Do you think that possibly one of the things that's impacting the coach's reaction is the fact that for many coaches, it's not a full-time job? And those few coaches who have got a full-time role coaching or as a head coach have come up through a pathway that's very different to coaching in, say, Europe or the US. Do you think that that may have something to do with the approach that the coach has? Because they've kind of come from not so much, I suppose, coaching as a career?
Yeah, so I just went to Barcelona and I went to Joventut Barcelona club, which is a professional club in their first league, and below it they have their under 18s, you know, all their junior programs coming through. I took 4 athletes over there to be immersed in that environment for 8 days, to learn from a new coach, to go to a training session where they don't speak the language and to figure that out. Things that I learned when I was 27, they're learning when they're 16. It was incredible. And this club, they do a really good job of developing their players. And I was curious as to how different it was, because it was very, very different to how we do it here. The first question I asked was, do you pay your coaches? And they said, absolutely. Like, I'm talking about under 12s, 14s, 16s, 18s. Yep. Absolutely. Of course we do. We are here to develop athletes and coaches. And if that's our goal, then how could we not look after the coaches? We need to make sure that they're the best quality we can get, so because they're going to influence how well we develop the athletes.
Yep.
So that's definitely one part of it. They had coaches coaching up and down so that they were learning and then giving their wisdom to the lower levels at the same time.
Right.
So I do think there's something there in how we treat coaches. And unfortunately, we're resource poor in the WNBL. We're extremely resource poor. So
sure,
we can't pay coaches enough to for it to be full-time. So there might be a bit of a barrier there. You're right.
And the other part to this is, do you think the changes that are coming down the pipeline with the WNBL 2.0, as it's being called at the moment, has the potential to be able to shift that?
I think there's going to be a change. I like to think there is. I don't know where we'll go. I think we'll get more viewership, more resources, all of that type of stuff. I would love for that to trickle down into more of this holistic support for athletes. I'm hopeful that it will. But we do need to, it still can't just be taught. Like, it needs to be an implementation of structure and framework. Otherwise, it is taught.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all on that. I'm kind of curious because, it seems to me like there's a reset. There is a reset happening with the WNBL, and there's so much more potential now. There's an outlook that, everybody's saying is more professional. There's an outlook that there's a different approach to the sport. It's not so much, I don't like saying this, but there were times when it seemed, when it was under the umbrella of Basketball Australia, that it was a bit of an afterthought in some respects because it wasn't, national high performance. So I'm kind of hopeful that there is going to be this change. I'm interested in hearing the opinions of other people because, you guys were involved in the sport, you played, you've seen it from the inside. How would you go about explaining this to the WNBL 2.0?
I've had some conversations with, the links when I've been involved in them, and there's certainly, it depends who's running it and how interested they are in it, but there's certainly interest, and I think people understand, well, at least they're intrigued as to how we can add this support for athletes, mindset support or holistic well-being. So there is interest. It's just that it then becomes about, well, how do we scale it? How do we integrate it? Those answers are out there. We're not the first people to do it. There's other sporting codes that do it around the world. It just comes back to resources. And if a club wants to pay money for that to happen, if you have a coach who is going to buy into that as well. And so if the league in general, 2.0 is getting more money and players are getting paid more, good. Does that trickle into more mindset support? I don't know. Well, we understand that healthy, happier people are better at their jobs. Whether you're there to win a championship, you want people to perform, you want them to perform at their best, we need to give them proper support. If you want to create a culture, a community that young girls and boys look up to and want to be a part of, how we do that is by having a really nice, strong culture. How we do that is looking after our athletes. The product is the athletes and how entertaining they are and how many people they can draw into a membership, to a game, to a club. And so we need to support those people who are the drivers of this business.
Okay, so I just want to jump across to the concept of elite athletes and business. You've obviously been talking to businesses. How do you find the receptiveness of organizations to what you do?
Really open, really interested. I think we are so fortunate as athletes. We stand on this platform and it opens so many doors just by saying, I'm an athlete, I've played professional basketball, I'm an Olympian, whatever it is. And so that lights up eyes, and then that opens the doors, opens their ears, and they're really interested in your experiences. Then they're interested in how it can apply to them. And when they understand, which most people do, that it's all the same, and that, sport is about teamwork and leadership and pushing through tough times and all those things, that's a human experience. I think then they're really interested in it. So actually, organizations are probably easier than sporting clubs at the moment.
I'm also curious about how both of you as athletes, go about fostering your own positive mindsets. Everybody's got a different approach. So I'm curious to understand how each of you approach it. I'm going to ask you, Britt, first. How do you do it?
I think you have to go through the fire at first a little bit, because when you're young, you're kind of ignorant and you don't care what people say as much. That was my experience. I was probably more confident, but how the longer you live in life, the more fearful you come of things, because you're more aware of your surroundings, the bad things in the world, whatever. So for me, I was always really confident. When I started to lose it for a bit, or just become angrier or unhappy, I realized it was because who I was listening to had changed over the course of time, of travel. And that's hard, especially if you're an import player, as you know as well, being an import or foreigner, you change a lot. It's rare that you actually get to stay in one country, one team. And even if you're in Australia, you're still changing teams. But so you might have a close friend for a season, then you have to find another support system and another support system, another. But when you're younger, it was, my family and close friends, that believe me, they're the ones that talk to the most. As you grow up, that changed. And that became harder because I think I started to listen to a little bit more outside noise. I was experiencing more things because I was played for so long. I didn't retire till 39. But it did get harder almost to shut that out. And you think that would get easier the older you get because you would have learned. But it just wasn't like that for me. I think there were just, I needed to find that circle again and keep it small and find out who am I actually talking to and listening to, which is hard though when you change teams all the time. So I don't even know if that really answered the question, but it's really like being harsh about who you really trust or not, but then also being vulnerable enough to the whole squad so that you can achieve your goals and create a team culture. Nat, come, I need a framework for my life. I'll hire you.
I can help you.
I know. So what do you got?
I really agree with that. Like the people that are surrounding you and who you're listening to is everything. Everything is perspective. And I've always found, I think I'm not dissimilar to everyone else, like I can get so lost in my head about what I think someone thinks of me or these stories that I make up about myself and how I need to be in the world and blah, blah, blah. And I just, for so long, thought that that was true. And I thought that my default was negative and no confidence. And I just didn't know there was another way. There was someone in my life he's my mentor still, a very close friend who just ignited that for me. And he was kind of always in my ear, but I didn't really, you got to be open to a message sometimes. So until it was probably after Rio that I really started to like lock down on, you know what? I'm miserable. I hate basketball. I'm unhappy. I feel like the ultimate failure. Like I let my country down, blah, blah, blah. Are you going to keep playing or are you going to stop? And I was in Germany when I asked myself that question. I was like, if you keep moving away from your family and friends, moving away from the beach, from everything you love, putting yourself in these really hard situations. My sister, probably actually a couple of years ago, she was like, I was complaining about basketball. Are you ever happy in basketball? Like, have you ever enjoyed it? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you always complain about it. Like, there's always one thing that you're complaining about. And it shocked me. I was like, because she's not wrong. She's totally right. I was doing a really poor job of understanding why I was playing and what my why was. And that's kind of what I said before. Like, so the thing that helps me have a positive mindset is, or at least work on it and choose in every moment I can in the day to reframe, right, and let go of those stories, is why I'm showing up or how I want to show up. My intention for this podcast is to be as open and as honest as possible and to share. And hopefully, who knows what can come from that. My intention when I step on the basketball court is to be there for my teammates. I know the actions I need to take to help me be my best or give my best effort out there. And I'll stand there when the national anthem is being played and I will step into winning the championship, like a little vision of like holding up that trophy. We are the champions is on in the background, like in my head. And that's my intention is I want to go and I want to win and whatever I do from there is hopefully leading me there. Understanding that it won't necessarily come true, but that's the way I want to show up. So choosing how I show up is probably the biggest one.
It's very easy for me as a commentator to talk about things that, probably don't really make much sense at the time. It might not be basketball related, but it's a bit of fun. But if Rach can see that, she goes, "Oh, what's Keyan talking about? This doesn't sound right. That's got nothing to do with basketball." Then all of a sudden it becomes really awkward. So I think that chemistry is really important too. And I think more often than not, you'll find that when you hear commentary teams together, if we talk about Leonard Copen, Andrew Gaze and Jack Heffron, for example, the three of them work so well. And it's no coincidence that they're the three guys that work on games together, because I think it's so crucial that when the commentators are having fun, then the audience is having fun too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people underestimate the chemistry part of it, partially because quite often you just see I don't want to put it this way, but the talking heads on TV, the viewers don't get to see what happens behind the scenes with, developing the chemistry. and kind of getting to know how each other operates and how you speak. For me, one of the really standout examples of this was there was a game between Townsville and the Flames, and I'm sure you remember this. It was like the Flames were ahead by like 1,000,000 to 0. It was a huge split, and I think we were all kind of watching this game going, is something going to happen? Because it was such one-way traffic in terms of the scoring. And both of you had to find a way to keep the viewers engaged. And that was when you decided to ask Rach about the hairstyles. What's the preferred hairstyle? Bun, ponytails.
I remember that very well. Yeah, I do remember that very well. Yeah.
We talk about a lot of things in basketball, but more noticeably, what I've noticed is also hairstyles. What's the best? The bun, the ponytail, or the plait? As Bogue picks it up, goes all the way to the rack. Foul court. Did you have a bun when you were playing, Rach?
Sure did.
I think that's the best way. Don't get it in your face.
Sure did have a bun. I'm sure I still rock these days. Yes, I do know at most games you check out the hairstyles, but certainly the ponytail and the high bun is probably the most popular. What do you prefer, Keyan?
I would say if I was a girl, I'd say a bun would be the best.
Yeah.
Can't get in your face.
Absolutely. Not a fan of just the ponytail on the back of the neck. Also can be dangerous to the opponent if you're whipping your hair on a ponytail.
It could be a tactic for all we know.
And that is the beauty of knowing at the same time who you're working with, right? So Rach being a former professional player herself, and my wife was a very good basketballer. She played at the NBL 1 level. So watching her play and acknowledging the certain things that she do on the court. And one of the things that really struck me with women when they play basketball is obviously their hair is really important. So how they do their hair properly, what sort of hairstyles they really need to prolong a basketball game without it going into their eyes, whatever it might be. Men don't really have that problem necessarily. Some men have a top on whatever it might be, but women in particular. So I always ask my wife, I go, geez, how do you know that the high pony is the way to go when you play? Like, why is that the most comfortable? And she goes, well, it's really just a personal preference thing. And from that day, I just thought, okay, well, this is something that's quite interesting. So I knew Rach would have an opinion on that too, being a former professional basketballer herself. So you stuck on the conversation. I kept asking her that question. She was bouncing off me, and it's all a lot of fun. But that's, I guess, knowing and understanding who your talent is, who you're working with, and really just paying attention to the court itself and who's playing.
Yeah, I think that was one of those ones where it really hammered home for me. You know, because I was sitting there listening, running all the boards, and I was like listening to the conversation. It's like, this stuff is great. It's come completely from left field. But anybody who was maybe thinking about switching off at that point, because, you know, the Flames were ahead by like 30 points or whatever it was at that stage, I'm sure there would have been people who would have gone, hang on a minute, where's this conversation going?
It's other than that, or they'd say, what are you guys talking about? I don't want to listen to this rubbish. But you know what? You can't all be the same. And that's, I guess, the beauty of it. You know, you're not always going to be liked in what you do. Some people will love you. Some people will dislike you in anything, right? So as long as you're your true self and you don't stray away from that, then I guess you're doing your best bit anyway. Yeah.
And I think there was another one that came to mind for me. I was actually looking through some old footage like a couple of weeks back. And it was you made a comment. I can't remember who the player was, but it was like just a great shot, great play. Everything was just absolutely magically done. And I think you turned around and said something. No, you actually turned around and said, that's a grown woman move. Do you remember that one?
I do remember that. Yeah, I do. I definitely do. Yeah.
And I think after we finished the game, you were talking about something like that was that was a play on something that Van Gundy had said at one point.
Oh, great memory. Yeah. I think the grown woman move it's important, I think, in this day and age too. You know, we're talking about how we're transforming the way that we commentate sport in general. Because, you know, the term always was, it's a grown man move when you watch basketball, but we're watching women's sport. So you're not going to say that. Sure. And if anything, you've got to recognize that when women are great at basketball and they're good at sport, you got to, you know, say the correct language for how you commentate and what you decide that you want to do. And I think that moment of time, I said that line and I thought, yeah, geez, this was really important. This is an important moment, I think, for women's commentary in general, is that you can say stuff, you can take things from watching men's sport for how they commentate and translate that into women's sport as well.
And I think we had a little bit more even though the games were going out on Fox Sports, we had a bit more latitude because it was a stream that we were putting together. And so there was that latitude where we could do things that people weren't necessarily expecting, and you wouldn't be getting notes afterwards saying, oh, yeah, listen, that didn't work, or we don't really want you to do something like that. We were pretty much left to do what it was that we wanted to do.
Yeah, and that was sort of my highlight of doing it, is that we had flexibility and creativity to do what we wanted. And Paul, we did a pre-game with Alex Bunton. I remember that. We did that in front of camera, just in front of the court that was behind us. And that was the first time that I ever did something like that. And that was an idea that you had, which I think was great. And we got some great interaction from it as well. So, thinking of things outside the square, working out where to put the cameras for the game. We didn't have anyone telling us what we could or couldn't do.
Yep.
And as a product, it proved to be very successful because a lot of people were really interested in watching the game days at the Sydney Flames.
Yeah, we used to get really good numbers on YouTube on that as well, because not every game was carried by Fox. I think it was like Fox would take certain games and the rest would go to YouTube. And also we had that Fox used to actually do like a pre-qualification on the clubs, so that if your stream wasn't of a certain standard, they just wouldn't take it. So you wouldn't see every game played. But yeah, we did have those opportunities. And I think one of the other things that was interesting is, up until that time, I know that as you said, you've played basketball, you've been around basketball pretty much all your life. But at the time you came in, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you hadn't really done a lot with women's basketball at that stage.
I hadn't at all, to be honest. That was one of the first times that I ever got involved with the sport at that sort of level. I mean, I used to do camps there when I was a kid, when I was 16.
Yeah.
At one of the courts there at Sydney Uni. It was one of the best children's basketball clinics that you could go to. So I actually went with my friends. Michelle Musselwhite was there. She was doing a bit of coaching, and there was a few other players as well. Nat Porter, I believe, was there as well. So there was a lot of former players that were really doing their best to interact with kids. And it was great because you had a lot of girls that looked up to these players, but I always watched on the ABC back in the day. So when Lauren Jackson was playing, Jess Bibby was playing, there was a number of females I used to watch and used to think, geez, these guys are stars.
Yeah.
I used to, that really set the tone for me to, enjoy my basketball, but I also enjoyed all women's sports. When I finished school in year 12, I did a sports trip to Melbourne just to watch all the sports possibly could and watch the Dandenong Rangers play. So I always enjoyed watching the WNBL, but I just never was involved with it. And to think that one of my first jobs was with yourself and being able to commentate for a live stream on Fox Sports, and it was one of the highlights of my career, because all the stuff that I used to do to really get into basketball. And back then on free-to airport, you only had three choices on a Saturday. You had the WNBL on, you had the Shoot Shield on, and you also had the AFL on. So you had three sports to choose from, and inevitably it would always be the WNBL for me because I love my basketball.
Yep.
And then during a quarter time break, I quickly flick it to AFL to see the score, and then inevitably I'd go back to the WNBL. So that's what really set the tone. And I guess that was the beauty of the sport back then and the league, is that you had all the eyeballs essentially, because Foxtel was expensive.
Yep.
So free-to-air was really just one of the only outlets for a lot of people. So it was great to be able to get involved with the WNBL early when I was a kid, and still seeing how far I could get with it, for sure.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things that really got me was the fact that as we were kind of writing our own book, we had the opportunity to bring a lot of the players in. So, for example, like you said, we had Bunts do that interview. But we also did one with her live. I think, we actually pumped it out live, if I remember right, where she was from a practice. Do you remember that one? It was like...
Yeah.
And it gave us the flexibility to do things that there's just no way that you could do it now. But I think one of the things that really interested me about what you were talking about as well is we literally went from a stage where there was three sports and you'd only get one WNBL game a week to now where we've got so much sports to consume, and every WNBL game is out there. From your perspective, having worked in the field, how do you see that whole, evolution?
It's quite remarkable, and it makes it more competitive than ever right now. And that's one of the hardest things for all sports in general, is how do you market your product? What are you trying to get out of it, and how are you going to do it? Because it's not as easy as it was back then. It's difficult right now, and it's really hard to get breakthrough in what you're trying to do. We're seeing the NRLW doing good things. We're seeing the AFLW doing good things. And the WNBL is also going to be doing good things with this new ownership, this new takeover. So I'm really excited to see what ideas they've got in place to really push the envelope, so to speak, and see how far they can get, because there's no reason why they can't match the NRLW and the AFLW for traction and what they want to get out of it. Because back then, when I was talking about the ABC days, I had my brother sitting on the couch with me and watching the Canberra Capitals, because for him, that was exciting.
Yeah.
When you had Nat Hurst, and you had Jess Ruby, you had Lauren Jackson, and you had Tracy Beattie. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah.
Coached by one of the best coaches to ever coach women's basketball. So he looked forward to watching Jess Bibby with her left hand shoot the basketball. He was a left-hander himself. So he would always look forward to seeing that. And I think understanding the players back then and knowing who they are for just a casual lover of the sport, that was massive, because then you'd watch them play in the Olympics. You would know who they are coming into the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games for that matter back then. So I think you didn't need as much marketing back then to market the athletes. I feel like now you really, truly do. And there's some remarkable basketball players playing the WNBL right now.
It seems to be that there's a lot more connectedness with the teams in the smaller centres than there is in the bigger cities. And how does that mould the character of the team?
Well, I think it takes a person who wants that to come play for a team like Townsville or a team like Bendigo. I think there's an element of giving up some autonomy from a standpoint of, like, if you're doing it right, you should go to any cafe and someone should recognize you. Like, that's the reality of it. Like, if you're doing it right, you should go bump into the grocery store and someone should feel comfortable coming up to you and saying, "Oh, are you so-and-so? Do you play for the Spirit?" Or, "Oh, I went to your," like, if you're doing it right in Townsville or Bendigo, like, that should be like that, then you'll know that you're doing it right. And so I think it takes a special person that's willing to have that and want that. But I think it also is something that's so incredible, and like the genuine connection that you get. And that's something I was doing a talk at a school today about how, for me, I learned early in my career, it was really after my first season with the Caps, that there was no award, no championship, no amount of money in my bank account. Not that I made a lot of money that season, but I was talking more about when I was playing in Europe. But that wasn't going to be something that I was like, I'm so happy playing basketball. Like, I knew that there wasn't going to be some external validation that was going to make me want to go wake up at 6 a.m. and go work out before I went to class, or work out before I went to work, or, and so, or trying to make some team, like trying to prove that I could be an Opal. Like, there was nothing, like, I learned in that season, after winning, quote unquote, it all, that like those things weren't enough to fill up my cup, that I needed connection and purpose beyond basketball to be able to be fulfilled playing basketball. And so for me, I think that's something you get when you play in a place like Bendigo or a place like Townsville, potentially Geelong, if they get a bit more of a run up, is that when you have this connection to community and you see the impact you're making on people's lives, and it's beyond an event. Like, it's great. Game day should be an event. It should be entertainment. It should be a spectacle. It should be something that everyone can go and enjoy, and it's super entertaining. But like, the other side of things is getting to go and do the school clinics, and then those being the same kids you bump into at the store, or you get to go and do a talk at a school. And it so happens that you see that mom or that dad at the cafe that you go to and get your coffee, and they feel comfortable coming up and talking to you. And so then once you get to build those relationships and that rapport, then on game day, when it's those kids or those parents that you're signing that autograph, there's that connection, that purpose, that thing that's bigger than you, that you're potentially impacting for the future. That's like, yeah, this is why. Like, this is, or not maybe the why, but it's certainly a big part of the why. And I think that just gets to be like cranked up 10 levels in towns like Bendigo or towns like Townsville.
And you guys, you're also really supportive of Abby during her ride. How did you guys kind of decide to do that? Because it's something that really, would have made a huge impact for her.
I think if anyone is ever lucky enough to know Abby, you'd run through a brick wall 50 times for her. Like, she's that person that, and it's not just because she's had to live through more things than someone her age should have to and deal with more than that, but it's the way she goes about it. It's the perspective she brings. It's the type of teammate she is. It's the way she can find humor in things and just brings an authentic, genuine, just appreciation for this world. Like, it's, those kind of people are rare, and her personality is infectious amongst the team. And, her willingness, Abby could be a starter on any team in the WNBL. And the fact that she genuinely is okay with coming off the bench, knowing she should be a starter, but knows that is what, that's the kind of person that Abby is. And so, when you're given the opportunity to go and drive a few hours to then surprise her. So when she turns down this paddock after 260 Ks on a horse, and you can hopefully jump out and not startle the horse and be like, hey, we're here for you. And then you get to go have this epic bonfire and meet her family and friends. And, those are the kind of memories that not everyone gets to have playing basketball. That is a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. You can bring in someone from leading teams and pay them $10,000 to do some team building exercise and talk about, something, and how are we going to change this if it happens in a game? Or you can see an amazing human do an incredible thing, raise $30,000 for breast cancer in honor of her mom, and be like, yeah, of course we want to be at the end of that ride and support you and surprise you. It's an absolute no-brainer. And I think, you talk about meeting people that change, impact your life and change it for the better. And Abby is 100% one of those. And I think, me and Abby have more fun off the court than we do on the court, and we have a lot of fun on the court. But I think some of our best memories are probably going to be when we're both done playing and don't have to be so considerate of our bodies from a basketball standpoint. We can go ride horses and do all sorts of fun stuff like that. So, she's just awesome. And I'm so glad that that also, speaking of coaches, Kennedy, that was in preseason and gave us time off to be able to go do that, so speaking of a guy who understands, and that was, I think, his second year. So we'd missed out on finals the previous year. We were having a disjointed preseason. Abby was gone for it. He gave her the time off to do the ride, and then he gave us the time off to go up and see her and spend the day. And so, that's also talking about a coach who gets it, that's more than basketball too.
So we're kind of moving forward, and we're now moving into a new WNBL.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And but I mean, and there's going to be changes, but some people are nervous about the changes because they're sort of like, is this going to take away any of the special things that makes the WNBL the WNBL? But
do you ever ask those people what they think those things are?
Yeah, actually, I do.
What are they worried about? Sorry, I'm interrupting your question. No. I'm interested. What are they worried about losing that makes the WNBL special?
Okay, that the personal connection with the players.
Okay.
Right. So, the signings after the game.
Yep.
It's that kind of stuff.
Okay.
It's not the basketball. It's not the It's not that. It's the how we connect with the players, how we connect with those people that we see on the floor doing these amazing things. Because, and I'm going to use an example that I know about. If I go back quite a few years, I'm not going to say how many.
We never have to put a year. We don't have to put a date. That's okay.
Right. I'm a motorsport fan. You used to be able to go to the races and you could comfortably walk through the paddock area, meet people who were at the pinnacle of the sport in Australia, talk to them. But then as the sports become more professional, that whole area of connectivity is gone.
Yeah.
Everyone's behind a fence. You can't go to see them. You can't talk to them. And it's lost something from the fans' perspective. But the WNBL has got to become more professional because there's all these things that have to happen for the players, for the game, for the product that's out there. How do you balance that? And, because you've been talking about that whole connectivity that you have with the community in Bendigo, I'm really curious to understand, your perspective on this one.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting how the NBL and Robin Denholm and her group choose to navigate this situation. And, they're obviously very intelligent, highly intelligent business people who know how to invest, and they've clearly seen something that they know that they can take on board and make better, from whether it's a visibility standpoint, professionalism, whether it's hopefully a sustainability aspect to it, being able to provide hopefully longevity and continuity for ownership and season and strategic planning and purpose, and create a lot more vision of where we are and where we're going, and the steps and staging of how that will happen. For me, when I think of what I'm hoping to see as a player, the biggest areas of progression and improvement, I hope will happen in the high performance space. From a standpoint of right now, there's only one paid coach. Some teams are doing it where they can afford to partially pay some assistant coaches or an assistant coach. But I find it incredibly ironic in a league to have development players, but not actually have staff that are paid to develop. So, we're fighting for player progression, which absolutely should happen. But how then do we expect those players to get better if we're not actually resourcing programs appropriately from, S&C, physio, dietitian, sports psych, assistant coaching? And so, for me, my hope is, I look at an NBL bench, and I know it won't happen game one, season one, but I'm hoping there's scope for that high performance area to be better, so that, we're not relying on a coach's relationship with other coaches to then give up their time and volunteer to come in and help players get better. Because I don't think that's fair. That we're asking players to not do that anymore. We're asking players to get played appropriately. And so for me, I'm hoping that that's an area of improvement. The other big area of improvement for me, I'm hoping, is visibility. And I think this is something that I think the NBL will absolutely do a phenomenal job in, from a strategic plan, from how we're going to market players, market teams, market the league, make it visible, and what platforms we're going to be on, the consistency with which people can expect content, to be able to share stories. I think sharing stories and that connection piece that you're speaking to, there's lots of different ways we can do it. And I think one of the things like your podcast and podcasts have done is provided a platform where people who care about maybe me and haven't heard my story get to, and in a much bigger depth and breadth than it would be a 5-minute or 3-minute grab before a game. And so my hopes is that kind of content will be curated and done in a professional way, where more players are getting exposure to, and more fans can learn about them, have access to them, and feel connected to them in many different mediums, not just social media, or not just a podcast who gives up time and energy and volunteers because of something they believe in. It's something that's resourced and done properly. And so I think through that, there's no reason that game days have to lose that connectivity after a game. And I think it's one of the things that I hear, like our GM, Dan Jackson, talking about, is that is an asset that the WNBL has that almost no other league offers. So it's actually something that should be celebrated and encouraged and continue to have happen. Now, if we're dreaming and we're selling out 15,000 attendance arenas, is it plausible to be able to have 15,000 people line up after a game? I'm not sure that's something we can do. But in the States, in the WNBA, you might have sections, or you might have memberships, or you might have other avenues where you can still have access to that connection with athletes. And I think it's something that is so unique to the WNBL. Jacko talks about it all the time. I completely agree. It's something that we can't lose. And, it's certainly something I don't take for granted now after games. when you're signing all these autographs, I'm like, there will come a day where literally nobody, because you don't even really sign receipts anymore. Now everything's just have to go. Nobody will want my autograph. So I'm like, yeah, it's cool to also hear that that's a concern, because it shows that does mean something to people, and it is a connection aspect. And I at least know at Bendigo it's something that we're really proud of that we do and try to continue to do it well.
Yeah, I mean, you see it in Sydney, like when they do the signings and they've got them players at the tables and they're signing the posters, there's always a long queue.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so there's definitely an appetite for it. The kids want to meet the players, they want to talk to them, they want to get the signatures, and I agree. You don't see it I can't think of any other league where it happens.
Yeah, and so I think I do think it's an asset. So, and I would assume that most clubs would be giving and hopefully feeding that feedback up to the NBL and saying, this is something that's really important to us and continuing to grow our fan base, because I would argue that's an area where the WNBL can continue to improve. Canberra was a great representation of it this year. Our, attendance got better as the season went on. Townsville's also always phenomenal with it, but continuing to build match day attendance, I think, is a priority and a huge opportunity for the league, moving forward when we're looking at venues and where we're playing and how we can maximize that. And, if it is offering a unique fan experience, like getting to meet every player, that's something I would think the league would want to capitalize on.
The NBL one, even in my time since playing to coaching, has just come so far, and the quality of players we're getting, the marketing with it all is incredible. The crowds this year were the best I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it's been unbelievable to follow and to be a part of. So I can only imagine while the WNBL and NBL grows, the NBL one will continue to grow and to keep pumping it up.
Obviously, your international coaching commitments meant that you spent less time with North Bears in the NBL one. But, regardless, the team managed to put in a really spectacular performance. And it really came down to the very end of the season where it was just like a particular game that was like the difference between making it through the finals and not. How do you find that you have to balance the international versus domestic coaching commitments? Because it must be difficult. You spend all this time with like North Bears in the NBL 1 East, and then you've got to take this break for a few weeks to go overseas. It must be challenging for you as a coach to be able to manage that. And do you get people from North Bears, getting on the phone while you're overseas saying, "Hey, Renae, listen, can we talk about this?"
Oh, it's a great question, and how do I even answer it? Because the Bears, I love the Bears, and I'm so grateful that I've got to coach them. And to be able to coach in the NBL one with the team we had and to keep working with those players, I love every second of it. But also the challenges through that and what I get to experience every week definitely help my coaching and help for the Gems for sure. And then things I get to try in NBL one, we get to see if that'll work with the Gems. But it was a funny feeling that the Bears were kind of rolling. We were playing really well, happy with where we're at. And then it's like, bang, the last 5 games of the season, and then the first week I'm back, 2 days before the finals. But I don't think you'd be able to do it if I wasn't. I was so lucky. I've just got such an incredible staff at Norths, 3 incredible coaches that just, one, they're so confident, and then they're just so reliable, and the players respect them. So when I was gone, the team, they played really well. They didn't miss a beat. They kept improving. So I just think that, I was very lucky with who I was surrounded with. I think I reached out to them more than they reached out to me. I think they probably wanted to leave me alone. But, I reached out and I watched their games when I was away and just really proud of them all. I thought they did a great job.
And that's something else about the NBL one, your ability to be able to watch the games overseas. You've just mentioned that. And I think it's something that people probably don't think too much about here in Australia because, the truth is we're kind of spoilt with that level of action.
Yeah.
But it's been made available overseas. So it's actually helping to identify the NBL 1 as a destination for those players who are really trying to get some additional experience. In terms of, being able to identify imports who could come up into the WNBL, how do you think the NBL 1 has assisted, WNBL clubs generally?
Well, I think we've seen a fair few of our superstars play NBL 1 and get noticed. Like Sammy Wickham was an NBL 1 player before she signed with the Perth Lynx back in the day. And then Tracy Gahan, who went on to be one of Adelaide's great players, she played in Tassie. So I think there's a lot of cases of imports that come out here, give it a go, why not? And then it ends up being they're one of our best players that we've had in the league. And I think there's great examples of just players that have finished at college and they're not really willing to give up that dream, and maybe they can't get that European contract, so they come here first to give it a go, and we either get really, really lucky and they end up staying for a long time, or they move on to another adventure. But I think that, it's only going to get bigger. I think you're right with the visibility overseas and people can watch it. It's going to continue to grow.
I want to jump to something a little bit different. You've gone from being a very successful player, WNBL champion, you've, played for the Opals, and now, you have made amazing strides in the coaching ranks. What do you think is that you take from being a player that helps you be a good coach?
I think that in any single moment, no matter what's happening, good or bad, I can slip into their shoes. So I think that for an example, if a player is playing so bad and I'm coaching, and as frustrating as it is, I'm watching just this poor kid just self-destruct, but I can put myself in their shoes and know exactly how that feels and how crippling it is and how much you just don't, it's not on purpose, you don't want it to happen. So I think the ability to kind of get there with them and help them get out of that, that's probably what I love about it the most, but that's what I feel has helped me the most. And then also on the flip side, probably the obvious thing is I was so lucky to have such a long career and I had so many incredible coaches and I saw so many great things that I now get to use, but I also saw some things that really hurt my teammates and didn't work that have really stuck with me. So that's something that I feel, for sure that's probably a bit more obvious, but then slipping into the shoes of good or bad, I probably really enjoy that, and that's something that's helped me.
So we're not naming names here, right? But you mentioned, you see a player who's self-destructing on court. What do you as a coach do when you've got that player either, halftime in the dressing room or after the game where you're talking through the performance? What sort of things do you try to discuss with someone in that situation to try and bring back the confidence and bring back the self-belief?
Yeah, there's a few different things. One would be, all right, we just have to narrow your focus down. And I'd say a lot of the times with players, the reason why they're in their head and they're struggling is because they're not scoring or they're missing. Rarely is it something else. And I think that's probably the most common one. So I just narrow their focus back and just look at them and just grab them and say, I don't care if you don't make another shot for the rest of this half, but we're going to measure the success if you got to go get 6 boards. Non-negotiable. You got to do that. If you do that, then this game we've had success today. So just shift their focus. Or even another way is just sitting in it with them and letting them know, you're playing really bad. Yep, you are. But you're not a bad player. You're just playing bad. So now we're going to snap out of it, okay? You're all good. This is done. So kind of allowing them to feel what they're feeling and acknowledge, this isn't good. But you're not a bad player, you're just playing bad. And that kind of just gives a sense of relief, or either of the two options or a couple of things like that. But I think definitely addressing it helps. I mean, I found that as well, that, you have such a terrible game and you go home and you're just so depressed for 24 hours and you're probably not okay till you see everyone again because you're really worried about it. But then if someone comes up to you and is like, you didn't play well, but that's okay. Yeah, I don't know. You just feel like you can relax because you've addressed the elephant in the room and it's not all doom and gloom. So, I mean, I'm not saying I've just tried a few things like that. And I think that it helps players to kind of get out of their head. But
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously it's a really individual thing, but it's always interesting because everybody has a different approach to it, and it's interesting to hear how, from your point of view, how you try and approach it, because there are some people who look at it from a completely different perspective. So it's great to understand what you think works, because obviously there's people who are listening who are like, I'm kind of interested in coaching, or I'm interested in how this particular coach coaches, and they want to get an idea into how you see things, because the truth is, put 10 coaches in a room, you got 10 completely different ways of dealing with exactly the same situation.
And don't get me wrong, I act like I'm really calm, great, and positive, but the walk from the court to the change room is me like, I'm going to kill this person, I'm going to kill them. They're not playing this second half. There's no way they're getting on. And then I give myself 10 seconds and I'll snap out of it and kind of revert to, all right, what do they need from me now? Like, really, we need this player, and what the hell are we going to do to get them there? So, and this could be right, it could be wrong, and you're right. That's the most incredible thing about coaching, is everyone has such a unique way, and I just love hearing everyone else's strategies and what they do.
Yeah. And following on from this, one of the things that I've noticed that's been going on is there's been a lot more investment across the sport in areas that aren't just on the floor playing. So there's been a lot more investment and a lot more discussion, not only in social media, but on from different segments of the community, about building up coaching, and also things like mentor programs, workshops. There's the new CBA for the WNBL players as well. From the point of view of someone who's been involved in the sport for quite a bit of time, how are you seeing the whole trajectory of women's basketball going?
It's exciting. It's very exciting to have seen. We had Chloe Dalton actually come out and talk to the Future Flames this week, and she touched on the exact same thing where I think she got paid, a couple $100 or whatever it is, to now where it's going. And it's not even the money, and I've spoken about this a lot. It's not, I personally don't think that it's about the money and the equal pay and all that just yet. I just think that it's the resources. And if you can give us the equal resources, watch what will happen. And that's what we're seeing now. And that's the most incredible part of it for me, is the training times, the facilities that we're getting, the support staff that we're getting, that's now being matched, and now we're seeing the growth. And then the money will follow that, with the players being rewarded. And as you can see, they are. The minimum wage has gone up, things like that. But I think for me, it's always been about the resources and how can we level the playing field there, and then let the women go. And I think we're seeing it.
You've mentioned the Opal, so Paris, the Olympics, a bronze medal. I'm really curious, the first game, when you walked out on that court, how did you feel? Olympics, Paris, first game.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going through my mind at that stage. I think just overwhelmed, I think, was one that I could use, excited and just in awe of how many people were in that stadium. The people I was running out on court with, just sometimes it obviously has sunk in, but now when I talk about it, it's oh my God, I was at the Olympic Games. Wow, that is, it's really cool just to be able to talk about those experiences. So, but I think the emotions was just overwhelmed, and it was probably, the Olympics was probably one of the most amazing but challenging experiences for me. And not just that first game, just the whole experience across the whole thing. Okay.
You said challenging. What was challenging about? I'm sorry, I'm really curious. What did you find challenging about that?
Yeah, I probably didn't have the lead up. So before we went into Lille, which was the first week of playing, we were in Spain for about a week and a half, and that was basically the first time when everyone, but not everyone really trained. Everyone was there together, but we actually hadn't trained together because girls had some injuries and things like that. And I actually, now looking back, I feel like a drama queen. I was I had a little calf niggle, and it stopped me from training and being able to play with some of the WNBA girls in the lead up. And I think upon reflection, I think that would have been super valuable for me, because obviously we'd gone to China, gone to Japan, done the Melbourne games, and I played well. I had good minutes and things like that, but the team completely changed when it came to Paris, and rightly so. The WNBA girls and more experience, and I was just a young girl on the block. So I think, in all honesty, like adjusting to that from playing a lot to not playing a whole heap is like something that which was new to me. So I think that was one challenging bit, and really trying to find ways that I could impact the game in just small stints and stay ready. And yeah, because it was challenging, and I think my confidence was low after just not feeling like I was contributing, but not in a way that I had experienced before, because naturally I'm a scorer and that wasn't happening for me. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I think it took me a little while to try and find my feet. So yeah, that's probably one of the challenging things, was just trying to find a way that I could contribute to that team without the ball in hand. And just, yeah, it was just a new experience. But on the flip side, now reflecting on that, I'm so grateful that I was given that opportunity. Because now if it was to happen again, I feel like I'm more prepared, and not many people my age really have ever been to an Olympic Games that young.
Yeah, you were 19 at the time, is that right? Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, just so, like, talk about big experiences and big emotions, like that's a big stage for anybody, let alone a 19-year-old woman, you know, like it's, I can completely, I guess, understand on so many levels. That would have been a lot.
Yeah. And I think, just being there, like, it was hard to take in that you're actually like at the Olympics sometimes. Like, it was such a intense environment, particularly after dropping that first game. Like, every possession, like literally every possession mattered. And yeah, the intensity and physicality of that brand of international basketball was something I'd never really experienced, but was in awe of as well.
Okay, so just paint us a picture. You're 19, you're in the Olympic Village, you're walking around the Olympic Village. Who was the one athlete that you saw that you just went, oh my God, it's...
Yeah, there's probably lots of people, to be honest. But I think in the first week we stayed, so the first part of like the pool games were up in Lille, which is like out of Paris. It was just basketballers. Nikola Jokic was sitting in the dining hall, like a table over. Arnis was sitting there, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like all these people. I literally watched a Netflix show, like the NBA thing of like all those people. So like probably just like the basketballers from that perspective. And then we played Team USA, so we're playing against Aja Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Diana Taurasi. So that from a basketball perspective, that's them. And then can't think of, like, obviously I really like tennis players, so I think Naomi Osaka from like a distance. But then there's like other like Aussies like in the actual village. A cool experience that we got was we played on the very last day of like the Olympics. So when we were coming back from receiving our medal, like there was like basically just a walkway that was created for us of all the other Australian athletes going off to the closing ceremony, and they made just like a tunnel for us to like walk through. And I couldn't really pinpoint like all of the people there, but there was obviously swimmers and different sporting people in there. They were just congratulating us, that was cool memory.
That would have been pretty special.
Yeah, it was unreal.
One of the things that surprised me when we were kind of just doing a bit of research is, and you've touched on it earlier, your family has got a huge sporting pedigree.
Yeah.
Given all the different sports that your family's played, why did you land on basketball? I was really curious about that one.
Yeah, I think I've got an older brother and an older sister, so I'm the youngest of 3. And I think just like any younger sibling, you kind of just like follow your siblings around to what sports they do. And basketball was one of the sports that they did. But I did lots of sports growing up. I did surf lifesaving, I did netball, I did all the knockout sports you can imagine, just to like miss out on school. But when I was growing up, I think I really liked netball, but Mum was my coach, and I actually didn't like her coaching me, not because she's a bad coach, just because I didn't like her telling me what to do at home and then telling me what to do on court. And I feel like I think she didn't like it either, but separating like coach, mum, like that's just not something I enjoyed. So, but I still liked netball. I played school netball up until I left for the COE, and that's when I had to decide that basketball was my thing when I was 15. But I also did surf lifesaving. That was my other like main thing I did. And I seriously can't say enough positive things about surf lifesaving. I loved it. Like, it was so much fun. The summer, the beach, you're just with your friends, you get tan. Like, I wasn't thinking about that when I was little, but that happened. And it was like a nice mix between like competitiveness and then like team camaraderie. And yeah, that was really fun for my summer times as well.
My old boss is Damien Marangon, and he's the CEO of Surf Lifing SA. I'm pretty sure he's going to clip that and use it as promo. He's going to love that.
Yeah, I'll happily promote surf lifesaving. Like, when I have kids, like, they will be doing that. Like, I loved it. It was so good.
So, okay, Bendigo's an awful long way from the beach. So
I know. That's a big downfall of Bendigo. I found this Georgia Booth. She goes out to, it's a reservoir. I forget the name, but you know, does the job for now. Temporary beach. We've got paddle boards and stuff. Yeah, that does the job.
Paul asked you about the Olympics, but the WNBA draft. How did you? What was the feeling? What was your feeling when your name was called out for the WNBA draft? That's another pretty amazing moment.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Like, it was morning for us, obviously, time difference. It's night over there in America, but it was early morning. And it was at home, basically had everyone who's important to me there. And I felt just happy that everyone who supports me was in our lounge room watching. And yeah, we just watched it on TV. It's pretty cool that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese were in the same draft class as what I was. But yeah, I guess it was a really cool experience, but I didn't actually get the excitement of like hearing my name get called out, because it was kind of in an ad break and then it popped back on, and now like
so I
didn't really hear like in the 20th pick, the Atlanta Dream select, it was the ad break, and then they came on and they like rapid fire did like 4 picks. So I didn't get that, but when I saw my name pop off, it was nice, and bit of a delayed reaction of everyone being like, oh, like, your name's up there, like, good job. But yeah, it was really cool. I feel really lucky that I was picked by Atlanta, and yeah, it was really cool to get, I don't think it happens very often that I got picked with another Australian to the same team. Like, that's pretty cool as well in Nadio. So yeah, super lucky to have that been done.
Looking back on when you started at Clemson to where you are now, you've been through a lot, you know, WNBL, NBL1, Kangaroos, and now you're in Germany, and now you're in New Zealand. What would you say are some of the biggest growth areas that you've kind of, I guess, as a player and as a person as well?
Yeah, great question.
Oh, thanks. Sorry about the curveball.
No, I think it's a good one. In college, definitely, it was really, I would say, transformative for me. I think prior to getting to Clemson, basketball, I was really grinding. I was working really hard to get there. And I think when I got to Clemson, I finally started to understand and learn, not that I didn't have an element of that, but I think I was very determined, and I sort of was able to sort of like let my shoulders come down a little bit and relax my jaw a little bit and just enjoy also what I was doing and the people I was sharing it with, and yeah, sort of getting to explore things off the court with my studies that I'm really starting to be able to tap into now. So yeah, I think Clemson was awesome for me. On the court, I definitely got better, but I think off the court with, just growing as a person and sort of opening my eyes a little bit was pretty influential for sure. And then I'd say out of finishing up at graduating and then sort of my first 2 years playing pro was full on. And like you said, sort of jumped around a little bit around checking out different locations. So that was a lot of fun. But also I think that first year overseas in Europe was really tough. And yeah, it definitely pushed me. I saw the prompt that you'd put for asking about Europe and what that experience was like. And I think I've shied away a lot from talking about what it was really like. But I would want to be honest and just say, yeah, it was pretty hectic. But I think having that experience that first year and really being challenged and struggling was really helpful for me in the end, even though in the moment it doesn't feel helpful. It's like, why is this happening? But I think everyone has that, has those seasons in their career, and for factors on the court and things that were going on in my personal life. Sort of that year, my first year as a pro, I remember being on the phone with my folks and saying like, I'm thinking it might be time for me to like go get a real job. Like I don't know if this is going to work out. Like I'd come back from Germany and I had turned down a WNBL offer out of college to go overseas because I wanted that experience. And so I felt like maybe I've missed the boat, and I've screwed it up, and I kept working and pushing, and then an opportunity opened up in Geelong and I got a foot in the door. And I think now people look at my second year as a pro and I played WNBL, I got on the Kangaroos squad and this and that, but it was only the year beforehand that I was thinking like, I don't know if this is going to work out. And so I'd just say to people, yes, a lot of the time when you're right on the cusp of a lot of your goals and what you're working towards, it'll be probably the moment when you're the closest to quitting you've been. But I'd say, yeah, just hang on. And yeah, this past year's been unreal. And now here I am in New Zealand getting another taste of another part of the globe I probably wouldn't have otherwise seen, and met these kinds of people that I've been able to work with. So yeah, it's been an awesome ride, and it's been hard, but it's been, I think, really fun as well.
How many of the lessons that you learnt from Europe and from college that you were able to take into Geelong? I mean, it was a brand new team. Everything had to be built from scratch. So how much of that were you able to contribute to the team and the growth of the team across that first season?
Yeah, I think Clemson was really, really helped shape me into the person I was off the court, with that growth that I spoke on. But yeah, I think getting the transfer across to Geelong, I think when I was at Clemson, like I said, I'd worked really hard to get there. And so as athletes, we get really probably like tunnel visioned in that sense but I think when I got to Clemson, it was like I really started to understand it was so much bigger than me. And there was, I could have so much impact on other people if I was intentional about making sure I made a point of it. And so I think that was really transformative for me, so that I think I carried that on and took that with me. When I got to Geelong, I knew, hey, we've got an inaugural team here. And even going into the NBL 1 season, we were really, I think passionate, all of us, about getting amongst the community, getting to know the girls and the boys that were coming to watch us play, and, took it seriously that when we got a chance to play, we were also having a chance to impact all those kids that were coming out to watch us play. And so I think it's pretty special, what we get to do as athletes. So I think I did have a bit of carryover there.
And, that first season, I'm kind of curious from the inside, what's it like being a player at a team that has just been stood up and is building a legacy? I mean, you're part of the inaugural legacy of Geelong. So, how does that feel?
Yeah, I think I probably, when you put it like that, you're like, oh yeah, that's pretty epic. I'm thankful that, Chris Lucas gave me, another go. He said, yeah, come and have another crack with us. So after I initially said, no, I'm going to go to Germany. I first came out of college. So yeah, I think I'm really thankful that I got to be part of that. And for the crew that we had, I think we had good fun. And yeah, like I said, got to know the people that were coming out and watching us play. And I think it's that community, it's those ties that now, when I've left that environment, and you still keep in touch with those people, I think that's the stuff right there.
Okay. And I just also wanted to touch on She Hoops. You've broadened your experience through She Hoops. So can you fill us in more about what you've done with She Hoops, what you've been involved with, and Also, let people know about your creative artwork.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, She Hoops does some awesome work in Australia. They provide programs and resources, camps that really, I think, empower young girls, whether it's at the grassroots level to the elite, in using, I think, basketball as an avenue to impact their lives. And yeah, I've been super lucky to have been brought on board and I get to work with them. I've worked a couple camps. I'm also enrolled currently in one of their leadership programs, so I can speak to how great the resources that they have to tap into, the connections that they have. I've listened to Izzy Magmador. Like, we've had some awesome speakers come on and that's been awesome to learn from them. And yeah, I think on the creative side of things, it's been super fun to, I think, be able to do some of the stuff that I learned in college and put it into a professional setting and see that work play out into avenues that I'm really passionate about. I got to have some artwork at the WNBL opener in Melbourne, and it was a sort of an activation space where people could collaborate and, you know, jot down who inspires them, and like seeing videos of like young girls writing down their favorite player and or like maybe it was their mom. It didn't matter, but I think just creating those spaces and creating something that people can collaborate on in that sense is really, really cool. And so, yeah, I think I love being involved, and I hope that I can continue to, whether it's a physical space or digitally trying to promote the work that they're doing. I'm super thankful that I get to work for She Hoops, and yeah, can't say enough good stuff about them. Yeah, hopefully we should start doing like a New Zealand collab.
That's music to my ears.
I'll talk to the big bosses.
Yeah, nice. Nice.
Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you get our latest pod, and we really appreciate if we could get a like and a review so we can extend the reach to more listeners. And don't forget, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn.